Good evening. I'm Pat Kelly. I'd like to welcome everyone here this evening so that we could talk about something that is very, very important, and that matter is problem gambling in the Black and Brown committee and community. This is a very important conversation, one of which I didn't know was a greater matter as it actually is. But one of the things that we have with us this evening is that we have two important gentlemen that will speak on this matter who are community activists and have done a great deal of work in the community for a good many years. And I'm certain that many of you know both of them, but I'm going to do their introduction for you. We're going to start with Lillard Lewis, who grew up in Windsor and Hartford and is committed to community leadership. He graduated from Windsor High School, studied philosophy and African American studies at Central Connecticut University, and was a distinguished graduate of the Center for Africana Studies in 2019. He completed his MBA from the University of Connecticut School of Business, and he is now a second-year law school student at University of Quinnipiac Law School. And then we have our beloved Kelvin Lovejoy, who has been a tremendous force in this community for decades. Kelvin Lovejoy is a veteran community organizer, youth development specialist, a mental health advocate for over 30 years of experience serving Hartford's most at-risk communities. He is the director of community organizing and outreach at the Blue Hills Civic Association, a leader in violence prevention work through safety and stop the killing campaign models. For years, he's worked directly with youth and families impacted by trauma, poverty, and high-risk behaviors, including the growing crisis of gambling addiction among teens and adults. Kelvin brings a unique combination of clinical insight, street-level experience, and faith-based leadership as a student minister within the Nation of Islam. His work centers on helping families heal from systems that prey on their vulnerability and including online casinos, sport betting apps, and neighborhood gambling cultures. He has led workshops on addiction awareness, family resilience, healthy coping skills, and community recovery strategies across Hartford. Tonight, he offers a grounded, community-centered perspective on how gambling addiction is affecting our young people, our households, and our neighborhoods, and what the real solutions may look like for 2025 and beyond. We also have with us this evening a co-host who is Maurice McDonald from the University of Connecticut, and we are so happy to have him as an intern with our organization, and he's a marvelous and intelligent young man. So, gentlemen, let's start this conversation. As I said earlier, I had no idea that the problem was as bad as it is. What is it looking like in our communities today? Anybody?
Ms. Kelly, first off, thank you for having the foresight to have this type of conversation, this type of healing in our community with all the other things that's going on. Anytime we get an opportunity to be involved in healing is a blessing. I'll speak about two parts, if you will, just to open us up. And I think I'll speak from what the statistics are saying, right? When we talk about young people, and that's kind of my forte is youth, family, and community. The numbers say that 17.4% of Connecticut adolescents are at risk of gambling. That 10.4% meet the criteria for problem gambling, and that 72% of Connecticut college students gambled in the past year, with 17% reporting negative consequences. That's just with our young people alone. When we talk about adults and families, 1 to 2% meet the clinical designation for the disorder of problem gambling, and over half report major financial strains, debts, and so forth as a result of this issue of problem gambling. And then lastly, I'll say, there's a high correlation between depression, anxiety, and even suicidal thoughts based on this type of addiction. So it's a real problem, man.
Is this a recent occurrence?
I'm going to say no. Um, I was at Springfield College some 25 years ago, right? And, I remember when the development of the casinos were happening on the reservations. And besides, one, the displacement of the uh, residents who were living on that property, um, being in an uproar because it was now uh, the land of the natives once again, and they planned on building what we see today. These major facilities for gambling. That was some 25 years ago. You know,
Mhm.
so even before that, uh, gambling has always been an issue. And I think that with more technology and more advancement in society, it's only become a more sophisticated type of issue.
Mhm. Chef Jay, what's your thoughts?
Yes. I concur with everything Brother Lovejoy said. And by the way, I'll echo what he said. And thanking you for having the foresight to actually bring us together and talk about these issues, because they're real issues and they do go under the radar. Certainly, we have built up an infrastructure in the state that lends itself to gambling. Nothing comes without a price. Nothing comes without a cost. So, there's a revenue side, but there's also a human side, and the two shouldn't be confused. And even though there is strong revenue that comes with some of these initiatives that promote gaming and gambling, there's also the back end, the or the front end, if you want to call it that, where people are on the front are being harmed by this. Um, I do recall that study by the department. There was I believe the gentleman was citing a study from the Gemini Group that was under contract by the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. They covered about 139,000 people. I'm sorry, 5,800 people in that study. So it was a really solidly based study. But I want to say that I think what also might be going underreported here are the gambling and addiction in the African American and Latino and Black communities. Classically, this is a mental health issue at its core, and as we know, those go largely underreported in our communities of color. So I want to make sure that as we talk about this, we understand that these numbers that we're getting, um, in my mind, they're unacceptable numbers, right? We need to do a lot more to address this. But also, in addition to it being unacceptable, is also underreported more than likely in our communities over there on Vine Street, where you are, on Ebony Horsewomen, in and around, Capon and Mail Avenue and Martin Street and Edgewood, Ridgefield, right? Like, there's more than likely a lot more hidden underneath the surface that we don't see, and are more than likely not being picked up by researchers on these admittedly good studies, but
Mhm.
there's more depths to be plumbed here.
All right. So Kevin outlined and brought up the casinos, but what are the other factors in this without, the casino being at the forefront?
Well, sports gambling certainly has to be talked about, and this has been a debate in the state for a long time. um, the sports gambling is something I believe that it's first of all, it's more accessible. You can get FanDuel on your phone, on your iPad. They have a couple other apps, and
Mhm.
also they've got other gambling apps that have nothing to do with sports. Maybe somebody can take a look. I saw it on the way in here to the office that they're betting on random outcomes across the world. I mean, and it's all really kind of driven by the ubiquitous nature of the apps and the applications, where especially with sports betting, you can place a bet with your thumb, and that bet can have huge consequences. And you don't even have to use two fingers. You can just you can ruin your life with a thumbprint. And
Mhm.
that's pretty scary.
Yeah, it is. So is this gender based? Do we have more guys doing this than females?
I'd love to hear what Brother Lovejoy has to say, because he works in this field a lot. I would think it probably is not, maybe not gender based, but perhaps not necessarily gender neutral either. I think a lot of young men probably deal with this. I know that my sons have been telling me that they've seen people who are gambling. Their friends who are perhaps giving an innocent bet here or there. But Brother Lovejoy, I defer to you and your wisdom on this.
And I'm going to say this, Brother Lillard. I'm walking very lightly here, brother. But I will say this, Sister Kelly, and I'll come from a historical standpoint, right? That gambling has a long history in the Black and Brown community. Involving some of our closely held, dear traditions, like card games, right? I mean, come on, Black folks in spades that go together, right?
Right.
The lottery numbers, back in the day when folks played the number, right? You had to
Absolutely.
actually go down and play 999. I remember the elders in my neighborhood, they talked about what was the number last night. We can talk about bingo and even some of the faith-based sponsored events. And while these activities, were often part of the social and cultural life, it made quote unquote gambling more normalized as part of our community. And so I will say that maybe there was a time, when men were probably the prevalent gender in terms of gambling, and especially when it comes to sports and so forth. But I think, again, with the modernization of gambling platforms, it is probably pretty evenly yoked.
You bring up, I don't want to make light of this, but you bring up how the numbers were the thing in our community back in the day. And I certainly can attest to that. There were a couple of folks in the community, older, our elders, who were the guys who wrote, they would come around and say, what do you want to play? And I remember that the elders in our community considered playing the numbers as the Black man's stock market.
I heard
And
that.
yeah, and
Yeah, I've heard that too. Yeah.
50 cents on this number and that in the box and that one straight. And if they hit, everybody got something to eat, or everybody got something to drink that day. But I remember that being a real option it appeared to get ahead. And that was the numbers. And then, of course, now over on Barber Street, there was a newsstand where the bookies would go and do whatever it is that they would do. And then everybody would wait for the paper to come out and look at the horse racing, because the number that won is somehow in the horse racing thing. I don't know. It was quite intricate. So then at that era of our time in the community, I don't think it was that much of an issue. As to it now, it seems a bit more insidious. And of course, children couldn't play the numbers then.
Right.
Now we have youth and young adults heavily involved in this.
Yeah. The numbers game, according to this report that I was reading, it talked about being, in a decline in popularity with the introduction of the state-run lotteries. And in the late 20th century. And the state lotteries borrowed heavily from the structure and the appeal of the numbers game that was in the community, and legalizing the practice and channeling profits into quote unquote public programs like education. That's probably another webinar, ma'am. We can talk about education, but those dollars, right, were slated to go into education. Um, but I think, the legacy of the numbers game definitely lives on in what we see today in terms of legalized gambling. Still, folks who look like you and I are still reporting the highest rates, right, of lottery participation. Um, a trend that, they say analysis uh, trace back to that historical economic inequalities that we face, right? How do we get ahead? How are we going to make some extra money? Well, we played the numbers, and it's still that way today. People trying to do like the Jeffersons and move on up.
Right.
But unfortunately, it does become a slippery slope.
It's interesting you say that, because it did move from the corner drugstore, the corner newsstand, to the state, and still that inequality was still there. So let's talk a little bit about what's driving. So generationally, I think we could be saying different things for different generations. The old folks, the elders, played the numbers to kind of get ahead. It was a real possibility of adding more dollars to the household.
Definitely.
Today, it looks like it's more of a it can still be that, but it appears to be more of a sporting kind of situation that takes hold in the mind and then gets out of control. And now we've got younger people doing this because of some thrill that is derived from this. I don't know. Talk to me.
I think it's as with a lot of things, pretty complicated. I mean, 40 or 50 years ago, or maybe even longer, uh, kids didn't have the same access to capital. I think that they do now, right? I think that in a very real way, a young person can be making money in a couple of different areas. So I think that, when you ask, well, why are they doing it? What's driving it? Is it, to kind of get ahead? I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think everybody has a dream of sort of hitting it big and, making some extra money, whether or not it be the mega millions or, billions that's sometimes out there, or whether it's, an extra $5,000 or $10,000 over the course of the year. I think that everybody wants to get ahead, but I think and I'll speak to young men. Um, I think a lot of it is to escape. I think it's, fantasy football, fantasy sports. A lot of people are trying to escape, behind a computer screen. I mean, even gambling back in the day, I mean, you still had to go outside, or, I don't know if the bookies were actually knocking on your door to take down your bet. But I mean, you were out in the community. It was a thing. It was still a community thing where you were out in public. You had to go to the racetrack. You had to go to the places where people were congregating. And now I fear that gambling is sort of falling within that trend that you see a lot of young men falling into, especially, which is disappearing behind a computer screen, not socializing, sort of relying on these sort of get rich quick schemes to really make up for what has been a pretty dismal outlook economically for a lot of young people. I'm a millennial, and my sons are Gen Zers, 15 and 14 years old, and I'm worried about what it's going to look like for them. Gambling, as much as it is an out, I'm sorry, a get rich quick kind of trying to hit it big thing. Gambling in a lot of ways, I think, at least as I observe, gambling in a lot of ways is a sort of an acquiescence that the general outlook of your economic future, if you're a young man looking forward to, or a young woman looking forward to college in the next 10 years, you're probably looking at skyrocketing prices. You're never going to afford a house. You're more than likely not going to be able to move out of your parents' house the way that your parents moved out of their parents' house. So in a lot of ways, you're facing things that you probably, you know, don't even understand how to begin to think about, let alone get out of. So yeah, I think that I think it's an acquiescence. I think it's a almost an escape from realities that you don't want to necessarily admit are there and don't really even understand how to talk about.
So I don't want to take this back to gender, but it certainly sounds like that the gender that has this problem in the majority are guys.
Well, I speak about that because I have 3 boys. So I don't have a daughter. I have 3 boys. But I'll let others obviously speak about I certainly don't want to turn it into a gender thing. But I'm a man, I'm a millennial, and I have 3 boys, 2 of which are in high school. That's what I see. So I'm just speaking on sort of what I know, but I'm certainly sure that young women also have this issue, and we should be paying close attention to what's going on with them as well. But Brother Lovejoy, maybe you can have, or sister, maybe you can have some other input as well.
That's a good point. I mean, Miss Kelly, I would probably take it back historically, the whole idea of risk and reward, right? Whereby men went out of the home and had to hunt for food. There was a risk, if you will, right? A gamble, if you will, of catching the buffalo or the prey or whatever, right? And when you got a big catch, there was a reward, not only in terms of food coming back to the family, but then psychologically, there was this dopamine rush, if you will, of winning, you and your team, right? You caught a big catch. That's historically, that's going back into some early ancestry days. But I want to bring it up to date, right? In 2024, the total amount spent, and this is gross revenue, in the United States on legal regulated gambling, it says reached approximately 116 billion. That's a lot of money.
It's an awful lot of money.
Combining commercial and tribal gaming operations within that same count. Now, a separate report estimated the total amount spent on all forms of gambling, including lotteries, ma'am, was 172 billion.
Wow.
And so, when we hear about the mega ball and the mega millions, right? People want to take that chance. They want to take that risk. And again, I have to use this terminology about the slippery slope, because nobody goes into gambling saying, I want to get addicted, right? So there's both the tactile operation of gambling itself, but then there's a psychological connection also.
So I just kind of remember something that I want to throw in, and you guys let me know whether or not this is an entry into gambling. My brother, God rest his soul, passed last year. He used to play this game where he was building a castle and filling it with all kinds of stuff, but he would have to buy the parts for this part of the building, or
yes,
extra livestock or whatever, and he spent an awful lot of money.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because he was in Virginia. He was living in Virginia when he was he had moved from Connecticut to Virginia, and he was without family. His wife had previously passed, and he wanted to just kind of feel something new, moved to Virginia. And then, of course, trying to get acclimated to Virginia, he was home a lot with the computer, as you stated, and he came upon this game. I forget the name of it, but you're building this compound, this medieval compound, and he's spending money and buying this. And then when I went down to visit him, I said, what are you doing? And he said, oh, I'm just doing it. I said, my God, man, look what you're spending on this. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
But again, it was his replacement for a relationship.
Yeah.
I think. So I'm looking at a lot of the things, these apps that are online, not a lot of them, but some that come across with me. Everybody, I think many women, I'm not telling on myself because I know all y'all doing it. When you're buying from Shein, you buying the cheap stuff from Shein, they give you this little wheel that
yes,
where
yes.
you can, if you get the right number, you can get some reduction of the and you find yourself pushing that wheel, and not consciously understanding what's happening, because it's, I don't know, the crap is cheap enough as it is. Why we need more cheap? Give me 20-30% off. But we're messing with that. So if I'm in contact with that, I know the kids are in contact with that.
Definitely.
So they're not really trying to gamble.
Right.
They're trying to win something, and then it takes over. So speak to that.
Well, McDonald's does it.
That's right. Go ahead, Brother Lillard. Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Well, McDonald's does it. You go buy yourself a large fry, and you get yourself a little scratch ticket or a little Monopoly thing that you peel off, and you got to go online and you got to enter the number. It used to be a while ago. It used to be that you instantly got the gratification. You peeled off the little sticker off your fries or your drink or whatever like that at McDonald's, and you found out you either won a free burger or won another drink or something like that, or you didn't win. But McDonald's does it. And I just want to say, just as from a business standpoint, everything is an opportunity cost, right? This represents, every time you go and gamble, it represents a choice that you're making, that you are choosing to put your money in to gamble because that is the highest use of that money in your mind that you can see. Right? There is no other. You are not thinking of another option, or maybe you have thought about it and you just can't think of it. But in the moment, inherently and at its core, it is a decision that this is the highest use for my money that I can see here. And if you're sitting in a basement somewhere, or maybe even sitting out at a Wendy's, or sitting in a cafe somewhere, if you're a young person or an old person, because it runs the gamut on age, you're inherently choosing, even if it's only $5. You're saying this is better spent on the lottery or on a large fry. Because by the way, I don't think you get the scratch ticket on the small fry. You got to buy the big fries to get it, I think. Right? But you're saying that even that $5 is better spent there than going into an IRA, going toward a 401k, buying my mate or my partner a nice little gift. This is the highest use, and that is a damning statement as you look forward to the future and how much gambling is growing. I think that also shows how many options are being overlooked or are not available.
Ms. Kelly, if you don't mind me, I want to quote something that came out of the Washington Post, right? And it said that gambling and gaming are increasingly becoming blurred lines for youth, with in-game purchases like loot boxes and virtual items leading to gambling-like behavior and addiction. This is exacerbated by the normalization of gambling through sports betting ads, social media, and easily available online gambling via these smartphones. And I got mine sitting right here. And, you think about it, you see people playing these innocent games, right, if you will, to pass the time, right? But many of those pass the time games have again, reward and risk factor in it.
Mhm.
It says that factors like the brain's reward system, this is for young people, the
Mhm.
lack of developed impulse control in adolescence, and the design of the games make young people, youth, more vulnerable to developing this gambling problem. The studies show high rates of gambling among high school students more readily.
Mhm.
And so, again, that line is being blurred. I can't remember when it came out, but I do remember a slogan, if you will, here in the state of Connecticut. It said, "You can't win if you don't play."
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Huh? And what is that idea about? Right? It's an idea that taking a chance or making an attempt, despite the risk of failure, is essential in having hope of achieving success.
Mhm.
And then there's this lure to it. This is what I talk about, the slippery slope. The lure of this saying lies in its messaging that inaction guarantees a loss, while participation at least offers a possibility of victory. You can't win if you don't play.
And you know, I just want to piggyback on that. That's actually a really good observation because, well, which of course, Brother Lovejoy always makes good observations. But why do you think we don't see that anymore? Right? Like, think
Mm.
about it. Like, it was very successful. I remember that. I think that was actually McDonald's. Um, I think it was.
I think it was the lottery.
Was it the
Right,
lottery?
right.
Okay,
Connecticut
it was
lottery,
it was
right?
a
Right.
lottery. Okay,
Yeah.
but if you think about it, I remember seeing that like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, right? I remember seeing that like in the 90s and in the early 2000s. But why do you think we don't see that anymore? Like, why do you think we don't see the message you can't win if you don't play? And I think corporations make really high level philosophical decisions. And I'm just wondering whether or not the reason why you don't see that anymore is because I don't think that they're trying to motivate people in the same. I think that people are highly addicted in a way that they probably don't. Winning probably isn't the objective so much anymore as it was before. It was more like trying to pass the time. Like you said, it's in the games now and everything like that, right? So it's like it's to me, gambling feels different in 2025 than it did in 1995 or even 2005.
Mhm.
I think that we've
They,
become numb to it. Yeah,
mhm. Yeah,
I'm
they've
sorry.
taken
I'm listening.
the horror of it, the stigma off of it, and made it as an opportunity.
Yeah,
And
there are a
that
lot
Yeah,
of
and
there are a lot of
there's a lot
horror
more credit
stories.
floating around. I'm sorry. Go ahead, brother Lever. I'm
No, no,
sorry.
I was just saying there's a lot of horror stories, right? A lot of horror stories. Folks spend up the life savings, mortgage the home, right? Stay up 24/7, stay up a whole week gambling. There are lots
Mhm.
and lots of horror stories around this gaming addiction phenomenon.
So, Chef, you've got 3 boys. What are you gonna do to shield them? Because it's everywhere. It's on their phones. How
What?
do we countermand this?
So the first thing that I do is, from a very young age, I make sure that I develop not I develop a rapport with my sons. Like, I spend a lot of time with them. And that sounds much simpler than what it is, because as kids grow, they develop, more complicated and sophisticated feelings and drives and wants and needs. But at its core, I think my boys trust me, and I know they do. And I think that's the fatherly time with your sons is so vital and important.
Mhm.
um I think any effort to talk to young people, especially if you're a parent, or, in my case, a dad trying to talk to my sons, it has to come with the understanding from my boys that I have spent their entire life, right, with them, driving them to school, kissing them on their forehead at night, before they go to bed. At 15 and 14, they don't really like, they say, "Dad, it's enough," but certainly when they were, little boys, I spent a lot of time with them, and I think it just develops a relationship. So that's just one. I certainly maintain a lot of control over their devices. So I am very aware of how much time they're spending on their phones. And I'm able to control, turn things off, turn things on. And again, this is where the relationship comes in, because a lot of times you can cut your kid's phone off. We all have seen it. Kids are very resourceful. If they want to do something, they're going to find a way to do it. But I've noticed that when I tell my sons that's enough and I turn the phone off, or even if it comes down to a realignment, because I don't necessarily punish, I realign with our values. The boys respect it, right? They respect it enough, and they say, I find that they're not sneaking around trying to cheat on the realignment. And the last thing is I do a really I spend a lot of time trying to help them curate a really good group of friends to hang around. If you are around 10 people that are going to college and doing the right thing, perhaps, or being productive in society, because there's other things besides going to college. But if you're around 10 people who are being productive, you'll be the 11th person to be productive. If you're around 10 people who are being unproductive, you'll be the 11th. If you're around 10 people who are gambling and maybe going online and sneaking around and with these apps and trying to maybe put $1 here or two there with your allowance money, you'll be the 11th person. And of course, it's the opposite. And I guess I'll bring that up too. Brother Lovejoy and Miss Kelly. The remember when you get into a poker game, what was the bid, right? Like if you the bid is so low, you can bet 50 cents, you can bet $1, right? And so the kids with the allowances, you can put $1 on the Saints game. You can put $5 on and win. So anyway, I protect my kids primarily in those three areas, especially that last one. I know who my son's friends are, and I have zero problem saying no, that going in the wrong direction. Absolutely not. And believe it or not, my relationship with the boys from a very young age, it helps the discipline, it helps the realignment actually take hold.
Brother Lovejoy, you are a minister in the Nation of Islam.
Yes, ma'am.
You are leading a group of Black young men who have vowed to be great men. Talk about that a little bit, and how that example, that group of young men, may be able to help in this situation with other young men. Not only with gambling, but there's so many other things that are going on as well.
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate that, Miss Kelly. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, of course, and through the guidance of Minister Farrakhan, we were basically told no gambling, no gambling, because again of that term of slippery slope. Can you have healthy gambling? Well, I think it falls into the category of healthy drinking, or healthy gunplay, or even healthy drug use. It just can become a slippery slope. And so pretty much, we were given, as part of our restrictions in our character development, just no gambling at all, right? We have to ask the question, what kinds of fulfillment is one getting from gambling? And psychologically, it fulfills the need of excitement. It fulfills the need of social interaction and achievement, and even escape from one's problems. And so what we strive to do is keep our young men busy. You want the excitement? I tell you what, let's put a business together. All right. And if we're going to deal with risk, let's go into the risk of becoming successful business owners, right? As you know, our young men are out there with the Final Call newspaper, so they get social interaction. And it's a beautiful thing. I mean, I have mentees that they have the Stop the Killing campaign, and they assist the brothers with the distribution of the Final Call newspaper. And my young mentees are anywhere from 11 to 12, and I have the older ones who are 17 and 18. And we go out on the weekend, and I tell you, Miss Kelly, when an 11 and 12-year-old can make anywhere from $50 to $100 in a few hours and take that home to their family, that's the type of excitement, social interaction, and achievement that we're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And you should see the expression on their face. You should see their cadence change. You could see the countenance on their faces change. They have a certain pride. And sure enough, that next week, here they come with 2 or 3 more friends.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's the same lure, if you will, that gambling might have, only we're using that in a positive way and say, you know what? We're going to take positive, mitigated risk. We're going to take risks that actually help you to produce.
And I want to make sure I put this in there too. The other way I help my boys, I sign them up for Ebony Horsewomen. They're in the Junior Mounted Patrol, so that's been
Yes.
also a really, really good tool in the quiver. Talking about that is I would be remiss if I didn't mention that. They were helped immensely by coming over to Ebony Horsewomen and
I'm
getting
glad
themselves
to hear that.
engaged.
I'm very happy to hear that. Let me ask you this. Chef Jay, you're a law student. Should we begin, and I guess I need to identify at some point who the we is.
Okay.
Should we begin to teach this in school? Is it legal to do this in a school setting? And I'm talking elementary up.
You mean teaching against gambling?
Exactly. The risk
Well,
of gambling. And what is gambling? I'm trying to identify, because it looks different to different generations.
So responsibly, as a law student, I have to mention that I am a law student and I'm not a lawyer and I am not qualified to give legal advice. So I need to make sure that I put that out there
However,
I would say that I don't see how, from a parent standpoint, I don't see how that is an unsavory thing. I mean, I think that we should be talking about the dangers of gambling from a very young age. But I think that in forgive my off the cuff comments here, but we really do have to understand what is gambling. It does take like Brother Lovejoy said, the lines are being blurred between what is gambling and what is gaming. The lines are being blurred, and you realize you're kind of getting these triggers and these trigger words and trigger phrases and triggering scenarios in the gaming itself, especially if you don't have especially if you didn't pay for the game outright. A lot of times you can get an app that's a game and it comes with advertisements, right? And you play the game for 5 minutes and then boom, you get an advertisement, and it's about some gambling new app, and you download that app on the app store. It's so I think that understanding what gaming is, and I think that we've come up with, I said it was an escape from reality. So what to teach in high school or even grade school or elementary school? I think we have to start with getting more real human interactions for our young people and not allowing them to escape into a digital world to the extent where they are irretrievably, they're a lot of times they're beyond where parents feel comfortable going because they just don't understand the technology.
And to that point,
Yeah.
not to kind of beat our own drum, when we get young folks at the barn, they go to work.
Yeah.
They get shovels and brooms and all kinds of equipment, and you got to work. And what I have found over the years is that their minds are taken away from what is happening on that screen, They're now involved in thinking about, well, what does my horse need? What do I need to do to make this better? They're working, and I absolutely think that work is therapeutic. Period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
we have to give them the other option. Work is very therapeutic. And
exactly. And I remember when I was a kid, which is just a few years ago, we played hopscotch, jump rope. We played baseball in the schoolyard. We played hide and go seek. We played marbles. But kids are not playing anymore.
Yeah.
Because this thing here is their companion. This thing here is that. So Maurice, you've been really, I'm gonna come back to you, Kevin, because I know you could talk to this. Maurice, you're a college student. What's happening with your generation in gambling?
Well, it's similar to what Brother
Do
Lovejoy.
you gamble?
No, I do not gamble.
Okay.
Similar to what Brother Lovejoy said and what Brother Lewis said, it's become casual now. It's something you do in between like lunch breaks or just whether or not like between classes. I've seen students even here where I go, bet like through the hallways, or they talk about their bets, their wins, their losses. It's very casual. It's no longer looked at or deemed taboo. It's very convenient. It's on your phone. It's an app. There's no mission anymore to have to go to a casino or a corner store somewhere to go buy a lottery ticket or to participate in gambling. It's very easy to do it.
Kevin.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, this is very insidious. And so can we do anything about this? Other than getting them involved, and that's the scope is so large that when we say get the kids involved, that means more than one organization. That means every organization and every household and every, how do we combat this?
Again, I think, Ms. Kelly, and thank you for putting this together. And that question is probably going to be an ongoing one that we're not necessarily going to solve this evening. But I will give just a little bit of what I think the direction might be. There was a popular song not too long ago by, I think it was DJ Khaled. And in this song, he said, all I do is win, 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 no matter what. Got money on my mind, I can never get enough. And every time that I step in the building, everybody hands go up. The point is, everybody wants to be a winner. Everybody wants to be on the winning team. And when you live in a society and in a community with the social determinants of health, the economics is down, the education is down, the neighborhood and the physical environment is down, it doesn't say win, 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 and no hands are going up. And so young people see this and they want to be on the winning team. They want to be a winner. And so what we have to do in our community is develop systems that help to feed positive excitement, positive social interaction, and positive achievement, and break away from the social isolation that we find so many of our young people are in today. Young folks don't even go outside like they used to, Miss Kelly.
I know.
I don't see girls jumping rope no more. What happened to hopscotch?
Yeah.
Ain't no more drill teams, hardly. Shout out to Hartford Proud. But these things used to provide a thrill, right? And a winning feeling in our community. And I think we have to work to bring those back.
And Chef, just before you come in, let me tell you, a lot of those programs, like Hartford Pride, were cut. Were cut in our community, dried up. And
Yeah.
I think that was, you know, part that, if not all of the problem, a good part of the problem.
Yes,
That
indeed.
kind of stuff dried up in our community. We just Parker Memorial, when I remember again just a few years ago when I was a kid, I'd go to Parker Memorial and they had all kinds of different things that I could do there as well. All of that has dried up.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
Chef, I'm sorry, dear. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. Can you still see me?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, just to kind of piggyback on what you just said. Um, uh, the Connecticut Lottery provides like a breakdown of like where the money goes, right? So you talk about like programs being cut. Well, what is the money actually being spent on, right? So approximately 28% goes to, I'm sorry, approximately 25% goes to employee fringe benefits, debt service, and miscellaneous stuff. 20% goes to human services. 10% around there goes to like health and hospitals. You have 6.9% going to corrections, 3% going to judicial branch, another smaller amount going to general government, regulation and protection, conservation and development. You do have some that goes into, also I want to make sure I, intellectually honest here. You do have some that goes into education, museums, and libraries. But again, this is sort of where you have to, where the rubber meets the road. A lot of these things are, a lot of people who rely on programs like, for example, SNAP. A lot of the folks who are disproportionately, I believe, vulnerable to this, they live their entire lives in walking distance from their house. So if there is a fantastic museum somewhere or a fantastic, they might not even be able to reach it, right? Because they a lot of folks live within walking distance. So I just want to make sure I validate what you were saying, Ms. Kelly, by that, because the programs are being cut, but the gambling revenues are not being poured necessarily back into the communities that they're destroying, right? They're going to the general fund. A lot of the money goes to the Connecticut General Fund, and then from that, it goes wherever it goes, right? I mean, it's really hard to track. That doesn't mean all of the spending is superfluous or out of control. It just means that certainly there is revenue being generated, and I don't think enough of it is going back into the communities that it says. But I will say that also to kind of piggyback on what I call it Professor Lovejoy, what Brother Lovejoy put in here is that I wanted to add on that inherently, and I want to go back to this. Inherently, this is an opportunity cost. This is a choice. In order to kind of beat this thing, we've got to rely on human nature as well to sort of beat the addiction. If you think there is a better option for your money, then it will go there. So in order to beat it, what we need to teach in school is financial education. It is not a sound financial decision to gamble.
Great.
It's just not, right? It's not a sound financial decision to gamble. And if you have a financial education, if you are taught from an early age that you will understand that's not a solid, and so you'll understand that there's a better option for your money. You'll know what to do with $5. Most people don't know what to do with $5. If you say, if you give them $500,000, they'll say, "Oh, I'll buy a house, or I'll do this, or I'll do that." But it's knowing what to do with $5. It's knowing what to do with $20, rather than go buy some McDonald's or some Burger King and maybe a scratch ticket, right? What do you actually do with it? And do you have the capability from a young age? Are you being taught from a young age to actually know what to do with $5? Because that's where we're losing it. We're losing our youth $5, $10, $15, $20 at a time to this rabbit hole, because honestly, they probably don't know anything better to do with it. And if you want to beat it at a young age, Miss Kelly, Dr. Kelly, if you want to beat it at a young age, and what you teach in school is a financial education that allows kids from an early age to understand that betting is not a sound financial move.
So I'm going to offer this. We're almost coming to the end, but I want to throw something else out that I would like for you to talk about. We've got about 5 minutes left.
Okay.
I often have said, when we first started Ebony Horsewomen, we opened up, when we moved to the Vine Street facility, I had a bunch of my community kids, and they were tough kids. And I don't know if I should say this outright, but they'd fall off a horse and jump right back up and get back on the horse and go again, you know. It just tough kids. My first generation, I love them, just love them. Since the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
I have seen a remarkable decrease in that. And I no longer teach, or rather train in horsemanship. I'm stuck at a computer all day trying to find money to keep this thing going. So I've trained the trainers to do this, but every once in a while I go back out and I teach, because I think I've got the rock solid, foundation
That's
for it.
right.
I can make you a tough rider. You're gonna ride Diablo. When I get through with you, and the way I do it, I yell and holler and scream, which everybody knows I just love you to death, but that's how I do. And I look up at these kids and they're crying. I'm like, what are you crying about? You crying? Why are you? There's no crying in horse riding.
There's no crying.
No crying in that. And then, so, you take that particular piece of the puzzle and you throw it into the mix, and how they have removed themselves, or how the pandemic removed them from that interaction, to where they have found the interaction now in that phone. And that phone brings to them all kinds of things. So, in our last little 3 minutes, talk to me about how the pandemic may have made this worse. And before I say anything else, you guys got to come back for the next webinar, because now we're going to talk about what happens in the brain.
Yes,
what
ma'am.
really happens in the brain that makes most people not even notice what's happening. So yes, what do you think the pandemic did? We got 3 minutes.
I'm not sure what Brother Lovejoy will say, and I won't take up the entire 3 minutes, but what I will say is that, my dad was really, really hard on me. Really, really hard on me. Tough guy. And I think that I think when I notice, and I'm going through this now, like I have a 15 and a 14-year-old, right? And I'm right in smack dab in the middle of the pandemic with them, going through their most formative years. My sons always know that they have a home with me, not only physically, but emotionally. They know that even if I have to be tough, they know that they're not being abandoned. And a lot of our kids, especially our young men and young women, I'm going to say that too, but I'm going to say the youth, they feel abandoned. There's too many people leaving their lives, and they're really reliant on, they don't want to mess up so bad that you'll leave them. They don't want to mess up so bad that they can't come back, and they feel it's almost sometimes irretrievable if they mess up. And they think that's what I've noticed, because I have some of my son's friends. I've noticed this with them because they're living in different situations. And so I think that my sons are able to be resilient because they understand that they have a home with me emotionally.
Oh, gee, I think we just lost Chef Jay. So
I think we may have, man.
Yeah, we've got I think 1 minute left. So listen, if I can't get Brother Lovejoy in, thank you so much.
Yes,
gentlemen.
ma'am.
And we will do another webinar in December and talk about this some more. So take us out. Take us out, Brother Lovejoy. And if it stops, it stops. Just say something.
I just want to say, first of all, thank you. Brother Lillard, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Sorry, that was another blip in my screen. I'm sorry.
So, as we're going out, I know I speak for Brother Lewis as well, that we love you. Sister Kelly, we appreciate you. We thank you for the opportunity to be on this platform this evening. We love Ebony Horsewomen and everything of benefit that you bring to our community. Do not stop. We love it. We are honored.
Thank you so much.
Part of your family.
Thank you, honey.
Thank
Thank you. I appreciate that. That makes an old lady feel good. So thank
You're
you.
not old. You're right where you're
Oh, I
supposed
know.
to
I'm
be.
just playing. I'm just playing. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. And
Thank
we'll
you.
pick this up again next month.
You
God
got
bless
it.
All
you.
right. Good
Bless
night,
y'all.
everyone.
Good night.